How did I manage staying strict carnivore in the hospital for a week after my open heart surgery? Let's get into that. Hey, what's shaking bacon? My name's Bruno Panucci. I hope you're doing well. So, as many of you know who've been following this channel, I've had open heart surgery in the last couple weeks. It's probably been about 17 days now. And I turned to carnivore after I had my first heart attack. So some people out there might think, why would you go carnivore to an all-meat diet if you have a history of heart disease? Well, it's gotten rid of the vast majority of my health problems. It just wasn't long enough to get rid of my high fasting insulin and a couple other small ones. Regardless, being strict carnivore when you're away from your regular routine, whether it be on a vacation or a road trip of some kind with work or in a hospital, can be difficult, and it requires planning. Doing a carnivore diet has helped me so much. First and foremost, I have to say it's corrected my sugar and carbohydrate addiction. I don't rule my life around what kind of food I can next get my hands on, whether it's pizza or ice cream or cake, whatever junk food it was that I was addicted to. Usually those are my big ones, but it could be anything. I would make a meal of it. I wouldn't just have some ice cream, I'd have a meal of ice cream. Same with pizza, same with cookies, you name it. Can't stop at just one. So it's corrected my carbohydrate addiction. For the vast majority, it's also corrected my other eating disorders like binge eating and emotional eating. I still do those things, but to a much smaller degree, much less frequent than I ever used to before. Now, I've always been an even keel guy, but it doesn't mean I didn't have to deal with stress. Everybody deals with stress. So it's helped with the vast majority of those issues, as well as the fact it's also turned around a lot of my health issues. You can look back at some of my older videos to look more into that. But sticking with carnivore when you're literally in a hospital for 7 days and you're trying to go by the food that they have there can be difficult, because the only options I had were eggs in the morning, which was the only consistent part of my day when it came to hospital food. It's the one thing they didn't screw up. I talked to the nutritional consultant there. I talked to the dietitian. I spoke with someone from the cafeteria or whoever it is that makes the food. And I had an issue all the time because day 1 or 2, I had turkey, and their turkey was horribly dry. I'm talking really dry. I could have a little bit of turkey like this in my mouth and I'd have to drink it with water because it was so dry. Now, I could have tried having butter with it. I looked into it and the butter was like processed. So I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to get processed foods into my system like that. It's bad enough I was already getting processed turkey, and I was fine with that. Don't get me wrong. Processed turkey was okay, but I didn't know what was in that butter. And that's what bothered me more so. So I just tried to, after about 5 days, I finally said, no more turkey. I just can't do it. Actually, I said that about day 2 or 3 when I said how difficult it was to actually just choke down. And it wasn't that the flavor was bad. It was just bone dry. So every day I got turkey. So every single day I told them I didn't want turkey. They gave me turkey anyway. So my only options were turkey, chicken breast, eggs in the morning, and I also had salmon. Salmon, that was pretty good actually, but they put a lot of seasoning on it. And the seasoning, I don't know if it's histamines or something in the seasoning, but I'll get like a breakout on my nose of like little bits of dry, crusty, flaky skin, and it turns into little scabs. And so I could live with that. Within a few days of being back home, that was gone. But I had salmon probably every day or every second day, probably more like every second day. And I had chicken, and those were the good days. But every day they were still giving me turkey. And I just couldn't swallow that turkey because it's okay if you're eating it with other foods, but it was not good on its own. I always had my dad bringing in a homemade burger or two, as well as some bacon. And boy, did that help a lot. So they were giving me 4 servings of salmon and 4 servings of turkey. Now, just from a caloric standpoint, whenever they were giving me turkey and salmon and eggs, I was barely making 1,500, maybe 1,800 calories in a day because the turkey was just so lean, right? It's a hospital. Everything's low fat, high carbohydrate. So trying to get enough protein, it meant I had to have at least 4 servings in a day. So the days I got salmon, I usually hit my target. Not that I was banking on always hitting my calories, but it's something I was trying to pay attention to. Because I wasn't moving around too much, I didn't mind that I was only getting a couple thousand calories in a day. But the first day I was there, I think I only got like 1,100 calories. And they're asking, well, you're not going to the bathroom. And I said, yeah, I'm not eating enough. So by day 2, my dad was showing up with some food for me, and it helped. It's not that I was backlogged in my digestion. It's not that I had constipation. I was just absorbing all the calories I was eating, all the food I was eating. So yeah, those are my main foods from the hospital. So I had my dad as a backup. If he couldn't make it, I'd try and get one of my brothers to bring in some food from my dad's house. I also had backup food that I had already made just in case this was going to be an issue at my place. I made, oh boy, lots of burgers, so many burgers. I also bought some bacon at Costco. Costco actually sells low sodium bacon, and that low sodium bacon is made with no sugar, and it's really affordable. It's something like around 20. I've seen the price range between under $19 for a pack of 4. I think it's almost 4.5 pounds to I think $22. Sometimes I go in there, it's one price. Sometimes I go in there, it's another. I don't understand why there's a difference and why it fluctuates, but that's it. But these burgers my dad made were really good, and he makes his own homemade ground beef. He'll buy roasts and then ground it into his own ground beef. He doesn't like buying ground beef from grocery stores because you never know where that meat came from and how many cows it came from. I don't have the time to do that typically, but it's really nice having that support. So I had the food in the hospital in case that wasn't going to be available to me for some reason or not going to be enough. I could always rely on my dad or my dad's cooking or just the food I already prepared. I had lots of friends who I'm sure would have come in and brought food to me if I needed it, as well as family. So when you're on vacation, this can be difficult. When you're in the hospital, it can be difficult, right? You always have to prepare and have backups. And then in my case, I had backups for my backups. That's why it was easy to do carnivore. There was one day I went with no food. It was my second last day there. It was the day I kept blacking out with my low blood pressure. And I honestly just wasn't that hungry through the day. And when they did finally give me some food at the end of the day, it was a bunch of turkey. And I was like, take it back. I told you guys every day I'm not going to eat the turkey. And every day you feed me turkey. I'm not taking it anymore. I was really frustrated that they were doing that. And that day, because I was supposed to get discharged and I didn't because of what happened, I didn't have any backup for food. So I ended up fasting for a whole day. I had breakfast that day and then I didn't eat again until the next morning, the day I actually got released, which was the following Tuesday. Keep in mind, most hospitals, including the one I was in, also had a cafeteria in the basement. And I could have gone down to the basement at any point and gotten some bacon and eggs. I sent a friend of mine down to get some bacon and eggs for me one day, but they happened to be closed. But it was okay because I had my other backups. So be aware of your backups. I had lots of friends who were talking about coming to visit me, and I was always prepared to say to any of them, hey, if I get in a pinch, can you stop at McDonald's and just grab a few burger patties for me? They would have done it. That would have been fine. So backups for backups. Remember, you can't play it too safe. Yes, believe it or not, McDonald's is a good place to get burger patties. Get it without the seasoning on it, and it's going to be okay to eat, surprisingly. Keep in mind, when you're in a situation like I was, when you're in a hospital and it's a controlled environment, you have to do what you can to be prepared so that you don't go off carnivore, because that's the kind of thing that can help people slide off carnivore. I've been doing this long enough. I'm not going to slide off carnivore. I've accomplished too much with a carnivore diet with my health to risk going off a carnivore diet for one meal just because I was hungry. I would rather starve for a week than eat something off a carnivore diet. I know that kind of sounds extreme to you, but that's because you don't possibly deal with sugar and carbohydrate addiction. I do. So I know my strengths, I know my weaknesses. I've been down this road many times, and I've gotten to the point where I don't cheat and have a lick, taste, or bite of anything off a carnivore diet because I know myself. Even if I could get away with it one time, maybe the second or third time, that's all it takes. And I'm not going to risk that. I'm just not going to. You have to be aware. You have to know yourself. And if you're a moderator, it may not be a big deal for you. But if you're an abstainer like I am, I have to abstain from carbohydrates. It's like a smoker with a cigarette. You don't hear about smokers going down to just 3 cigarettes a day. That's the only way I can kind of get people to understand the difference between an abstainer and a moderator when it comes to carbohydrates. That's really the way you have to think. So be prepared. Be prepared for all these situations. I did a month's worth of preparing for food before I went in for my surgery so that when I got back, the last thing I have to worry about for the first 4 to 5 weeks minimum is food in my freezer. I bought a bunch of ground beef and I made tons of burger patties. My freezer is full of burger patties. And I also got that bacon there for a bit of variety. I don't live too far away from a grocery store. I've had a couple friends drop off some cheese and Italian cold cuts, just some like Italian sausage so that I can have a bit of variety in my diet. A carnivore I've met through Kelly Hogan's coaching groups dropped off a care package for me. So when I got home, I forgot that I gave her my address a long time ago. She said she wanted to send me something, and the timing worked out perfectly. Literally the day I got home, there was this big box in front of my door, and it was everything from puzzles to food to snack food to carnivore treats to spices, you name it. It was in there, and I was so grateful. It was a great way to brighten up my day because when I go home from the hospital, I was in a lot of pain, not from my surgery scars, my incision in my chest, not from the one in my arm or my leg, but the fall that I took in the hospital when I kept blacking out from the low blood pressure. I threw my back out, and only now that it's been 2 weeks, have I been managing it to a point where it's not bothering me too much. So overall, it was a wonderful thing to come home to, and it all comes around to being prepared. It's really nice to have friends and family that will support you when you're eating this way. Any way you're eating, it's always important to have support from friends and family, even if they don't agree with it, but they're supporting you with it. Goes a long way, right? So it shows that they have at least enough respect and trust in you that you know what you're doing. So thanks a lot. I really appreciate watching this. I hope it was helpful to you. Remember, there's going to be lots of vacations and trips coming up this summer, barbecues that you're going to be going to. Bring food. Eat before you go to them if you're worried you're going to go off a carnivore diet. So, and if you do go off, make it an allowable treat. Make it something that maybe you're allowed to have, like something that's someone's homemade sausage. Maybe there's some ingredients in there you typically wouldn't eat, but for you, it's going to work. Maybe it's someone's homemade burgers and maybe they put something in there maybe you wouldn't like. Maybe they put something in there that typically you wouldn't use in your own carnivore diet, but you know what? It's going to be better than going off a carnivore diet. Even if you got to have a lettuce wrap for your burger because you're thinking, oh, I'm going to have a burger, I'm going to cave. You're not going to feel nearly as guilty having a lettuce wrap for your burger than you would be if you had a bun. So just pay attention to all these things. Be prepared. Think outside of the box. Do what you can. Hope you're doing well. Thanks a lot and take care.